After 3 years on the run, our paths crossed again during a raid. He was the brilliant young detective leading the task force. I was the fugitive wanted for murder across 8 states. Our eyes locked, and for a fleeting second, Jacob's composure shattered. Marin, how is this you? I tried to bolt during his moment of hesitation, but one of his officers shot me in the calf. Now in the interrogation room, Jacob's eyes are bloodshot as he slams his hands on the table and roars. 4 lives, Marin. 4 people are dead. How could you do this? Tell me it's a mistake. Say something, please. Just tell me it wasn't you. Looking at the agonizing betrayal in his eyes, I let out a soft, humorless laugh. You're right. It is a mistake. It wasn't 4. It was 5. You care so much about your wife. My former best friend, Lola. Don't you tell me, Jacob. How haven't you noticed she's gone? Jacob's face drains of all color. His hand trembles as he pulls out his phone. The lock screen, which used to be a picture of me, now features his wedding portrait with Lola. He hits speed dial. A second later, a melodic ringtone begins to drift from my jacket pocket. With a cruel, mocking smile, I slide the screen open and answer Lola's blood-stained phone. Hey, honey. Why aren't you coming to save me? I'm so scared. Jacob lunges across the table, grabbing me by the collar. What did you do to Lola? Just as the air begins to leave my lungs, the deputy chief rushes in and tears him off me. Calm down, detective. The press feed is live. Jacob's teeth grind together as he glares at me. Where is she, Marin? I shrug, the handcuffs rattling against the metal table. I don't know if you're smart enough to catch me. I'm sure you're smart enough to find her. Marin Kelly. His eyes are so red they look ready to bleed. Lola loved you like a sister. When we were kids and those bullies cornered you, she was the one who stood in front of you. When your mother got sick, Lola pulled strings to get her a bed. I took care of her every single day, doing more than you ever did. And when you couldn't pay the bills, she emptied her savings to keep your mother alive. Is this how you repay her? On the sidewall, the live stream monitor is flooded with comments. Oh, my God. Is that Dr. Ward from Mercy Hospital? I remember her. She was an absolute angel. The good die young. This monster needs to rot in hell. Faced with their outrage, I only sneer and turn my face away. My silence fuels Jacob's rage. He snatches a silver protection charm from Lola's phone case and hurls it onto the table. 3 years ago, just because your mother's doctor asked me to consult on the case, you let paranoia drive you mad. You accused Lola of trying to seduce me and then you stabbed her. I had to arrest you myself. But Lola couldn't bear to see you behind bars. She signed the waiver, begged the DA to drop the charges and got you released. And what did you do? You ran. You vanished without a trace. This charm. Lola walked up the 500 stone steps of the mountain chapel on her knees, praying for your safety. She prayed for you every single day, while you were out there slaughtering 4 people. And then you came back for her. Jacob's voice cracks, his eyes wild. Did you even care that your mother passed away while you were in custody? Lola ignored her own stab wound to assist in your mother's emergency surgery. She stood in that operating room for 12 hours straight. When your mother didn't make it, Lola broke down. She arranged the funeral because you weren't there. She blamed herself. She took time off every year on the anniversary of your mother's death to put flowers on her grave. She did all of this for you. At the mention of my mother, my eyes sting with tears. Seeing my resolve crack, Jacob's fists loosen. The same hand that once slipped an engagement ring onto my finger now rests on my shoulder. Marin, please. Where is she? If you show remorse now, I can talk to the prosecutor. I can get you a plea deal. I look up, my tears turning into a bitter laugh. Plea deal, Jacob. You're the piece of trash who betrayed me. What makes you think you have the right to offer me mercy? The deputy chief finally snaps. He slams his clipboard down. That is enough. When Dr. Ward was stabbed, Jacob only looked after her out of guilt. After you fled, he used every day of his paid leave to hunt for you. You were gone for 3 years. Jacob's father was dying of cancer, and his only wish was to see his son settled. Out of pity, Dr. Ward suggested a mock wedding to give a dying old man some peace of mind. Jacob lets out a weary sigh and turns his back to me. The deputy chief glares at me. We pressured Jacob to make it official and marry her. And this is how you paint him? You're sick, Marin. Jacob turns back, his face full of sorrow. Marin, do you want to know the real reason Lola and I had that mock wedding? He steps closer, placing a silver wedding band onto the table. Lola knew you hated her. She thought a high-profile wedding announcement would draw you out of hiding. Every detail of that ceremony was designed around what you wanted. The dress you picked out, the ring we chose. They were waiting backstage. She wanted to hand them to you the moment you walked through the door. Lola wore a cheap rented dress and a fake ring, just to get through the ceremony. When she didn't show, she posted the video online, hoping you'd see it and come home. The live chat explodes again. I remember that video. The bride was wearing such a cheap gown. People were ruthless in the comments. I was one of those commenters. God, I feel sick looking at the wedding ring. My mind drifts back 3 years. Jacob had just proposed. My mother's health was finally stabilizing. Drunk on happiness, I had called Lola. Lola, Jacob proposed. You have to be my maid of honor. Lola had laughed and agreed. The first thing I shopped for wasn't my bridal gown, but her bridesmaid dress. If only I hadn't seen what I saw. If only I had remained blind. Instead, the ring meant for my finger had been replaced by steel handcuffs. The man who used to hold me tight was now on the opposite side of a bulletproof glass. Marin, if you have even a shred of humanity left, tell me where Lola is. I close my eyes. A tear escapes the cemetery. Columbarium, Section A. Row 3, Niche 2. The police move with terrifying speed. But when they force open the niche, there are no ashes inside. Only a thin manila folder. Jacob slams the folder onto the table. Marin, are you playing games with us? The deputy chief touches his shoulder. Jacob, go with the team and search the area. Every second counts as Jacob hesitates. I tilt my chin up. Aren't you going to look inside? Jacob opens the folder. Inside is a voluntary organ donor authorization form. The edges are stained with dried blood. But nothing is as jarring as my mother's shaky signature at the bottom. Jacob's brow furrows. What is this supposed to prove? I was there. Lola didn't bring the paperwork. A floor nurse mentioned the donor program. And your mother requested the forms herself. The dam inside me breaks. My mother requested it. Jacob. You've been a detective for 5 years and you're still this blind? For the first time, the live stream comments begin to turn. Wait, did the doctor trick her mother into signing and then let her die? If that's true, I don't blame her for snapping. Weren't all 4 victims connected to the organ transplant network? Jacob glances at the monitor. Suddenly, the door is thrown open. Chief, we have a major break. An officer stands panting. Marin was heavily involved in an international black market organ trafficking syndicate. Jacob snaps his gaze back to me. You are a magnificent actress. I almost believed you. You were the one who brainwashed your mother into signing that form. Weren't you? You killed your own mother to frame Lola. And then slaughtered those doctors to cover your tracks. Are you even human? The public chat erupts. Marin is the ringleader. She forced her mom to sign. Let Dr. Ward handle the surgery and murder the staff. This is insane. She's a monster. A hysterical laugh escapes my throat. Jacob staggers back. Marin. Do you have anything to say? I wipe the corner of my eye. What? What's the point? You've already written the ending. The deputy chief stands. Take her back to holding. All units assemble. We search for Dr. Ward now. Jacob doesn't move as the guards pull me past him. His hand twitches, reaching out. But he says nothing. It takes 48 hours. They find her. What was left of Lola was buried next to my mother's grave. She had been folded into a tight ball. Her limbs systematically shattered. She had been forced into a kneeling position. Her forehead pressed against the dirt. The deputy chief turns away. She's an absolute animal. Jacob collapses onto the grass. Blacking out. The medical examiner's report. The victim's major organs were surgically removed. I hadn't lied. Every piece of her was in a different place. The trial begins. Jacob sits in the gallery alongside the families of the other victims. The prosecutor reads the indictment. No. 5 counts of first-degree murder. Over 400 black market organ transactions. Defendant, you may now present your statement. I remain silent. The gallery erupts. She's a plague on society. My son studied for a decade to become a surgeon. Give her the needle. They hold up framed photographs. A couple of rotten eggs and stones fly over the partition, striking my forehead. Blood trickles down. I open my mouth, but my throat feels filled with concrete. It is an old affliction. Whenever my emotions spike, my voice deserts me. Lola knew this. Jacob knew this. I look toward Jacob. But he is swallowed by the crowd. His face unreadable. I turn to the judge and slowly shake my head. When the judge sentences me to death, a cheer ripples through the courtroom. The judge looks down. Defendant. You have the right to appeal. Do you understand? The words won't come. I nod, then shake my head. The gavel falls. I close my eyes. Lola, you won. As the guards lead me out, Jacob lunges forward, but the crowd sweeps him toward the exit. Reporters thrust microphones in his face. Detective Mercer, how does it feel to hear the death sentence? We understand the killer was your former fiancé. How do you reconcile that? Jacob couldn't squeeze out a single syllable. A memory flashed through his mind. 3 years ago when Marin had reportedly stabbed Lola. She hadn't said a word in her defense either. The more desperate she was to explain, the more her voice failed her. Jacob's face went white. Get back to the station. Pull the evidence from 3 years ago. The knife, the forensic files. Lola's original medical reports. All of it now. When the files were delivered, Jacob pored over every line. By the time he finished, his eyes were bloodshot and he slammed his fist onto the desk. File an emergency stay. Marin's conviction is wrong. Jacob barely finished the sentence before the prosecutor's office called back. Detective Mercer, the evidence has already been certified. Then uncertify it. That's not how this works. Jacob slammed the folder against the desk. Then find someone who knows how it works. He started with a knife from 3 years ago. The original forensic report stated that Marin's fingerprints were found on the handle. But beneath it was an old laboratory note that had never been included in the prosecution's evidence summary. Partial secondary DNA detected. Female. Inconclusive due to contamination. Jacob stared at the line. Then he looked at the photograph of the knife. There was something wrong. The knife had been recovered from the floor beside Lola's hospital bed. If Marin had stabbed Lola, why was Lola's blood barely present on the blade? Why was the blood pattern concentrated on the handle? Jacob pulled up the original crime scene photographs. His stomach dropped. Someone had wiped the blade clean. Only the handle had been deliberately smeared. Someone wanted Marin's fingerprints there. Run the DNA again. The lab technician hesitated. This sample is 3 years old. I don't care. 2 hours later, the results came back. The secondary DNA belonged to Lola. Jacob stopped breathing. He pulled up Lola's medical records. The report said she had suffered a single stab wound. But the emergency room notes described something else. Patient repeatedly attempted to communicate with staff. Unable to vocalize due to severe blood loss and trauma. Jacob's hands began shaking. Marin hadn't been refusing to speak. She physically couldn't. Just like today. Just like 3 years ago. Jesus Christ. He opened the organ trafficking evidence. 4 victims. 4 surgeons. 4 deaths. Every victim had worked at Mercy Hospital. Every victim had handled transplant patients. Every victim had signed off on emergency organ transfers. And every victim had been connected to one name. Dr. Adrian Vale. Jacob froze. Adrian Vale was the chief administrator of Mercy Hospital. He was also the man who had treated Marin's mother. Jacob immediately searched the donor authorization form. The signature looked genuine. But the date was wrong. The form had been signed 2 days before Marin's mother had even been admitted to the transplant ward. Jacob stood so fast his chair flew backward. Get me every financial record tied to Mercy Hospital. His deputy chief stared at him. Jacob, what are you thinking? I think we arrested the wrong person. And Lola? Jacob looked at him. His face had gone completely pale. I think Lola knew. They pulled security footage from the hospital archives. Most of it had been deleted. But one camera still had a backup. At 2:13 a.m., 3 years ago, Lola appeared in a hospital corridor. She was limping. One hand pressed against her side. In the other was a folder. She walked into Adrian Vale's office. 23 minutes later, she walked out. Jacob leaned closer to the screen. A second figure followed her. A man in a surgical mask. Jacob paused the footage. Zoomed in. The man was wearing a silver protection charm around his wrist. The exact charm Jacob had taken from Lola's phone. His blood ran cold. Who is that? The deputy chief enlarged the image. Then went silent. It's Dr. Vale. Jacob's chair scraped backward. No. He grabbed the next camera recording. Lola was walking toward the elevator. Dr. Vale followed. Then Lola suddenly turned. Even through the grainy footage, Jacob could see her mouth moving. She was arguing with him. Then the elevator doors closed. The next recording showed Dr. Vale leaving alone. Lola never appeared again. Jacob's phone rang. The prosecutor. Detective Mercer, where are you? Mercy Hospital. Why? Because the woman you sentenced to death was telling the truth. There was a long pause. Jacob, choose your words carefully. I don't have time for careful. He turned toward the deputy chief. Get a warrant for Adrian Vale. Then his phone buzzed. A message had arrived from an unknown number. You finally opened the right file. Jacob's blood ran cold. Another message appeared. Now check the basement. They rushed downstairs. Behind an old storage wall, officers found a locked steel door. Inside were shelves. Hundreds of patient files. Payment ledgers. Passport copies. Organ compatibility reports. And photographs. Photographs of patients who had supposedly died naturally. Jacob flipped through them. Then stopped. His fingers went numb. There was a photograph of Marin's mother. Beside it was a handwritten note. Donor secured. Daughter to be eliminated if necessary. Underneath it was another photograph. Marin. 3 years younger. Standing beside Lola. Someone had circled her face in red. Jacob's stomach twisted. She wasn't the killer. The deputy. Chief looked at the files. She was the target. Jacob pulled another folder free. Inside was Lola's handwriting. A single sentence covered the first page. If anything happens to me, Marin is innocent. Jacob's eyes filled instantly. He remembered the interrogation room. Marin's tears. Her broken laugh. The way she had looked at him when she said, "You've already written the ending." He had mistaken her silence for guilt. He had mistaken her pain for manipulation. And while he was condemning her, Lola had been dead for days. Then the deputy chief found the final document. A transfer order. It showed that the 4 murdered doctors had all been scheduled to testify against Adrian Vale. They had died within 48 hours of one another. The 5th victim wasn't random either. It was the nurse who had given Marin's mother the donor paperwork. She had disappeared 3 years ago. Her body had only been discovered recently. 5 murders. 5 witnesses. And Marin had been framed for every one. Jacob grabbed his coat. Where are you going? Prison. Jacob, the execution order could be processed tonight. I know. He ran. For the first time in 3 years, Jacob wasn't hunting Marin. He was racing to save her. But when he reached the prison, the warden was already waiting. I'm sorry. Jacob's heart stopped. What? The transfer order came through 20 minutes ago. Transfer to where? The warden swallowed. The execution facility. Jacob stared at him. She hasn't been cleared. The order was signed by the state prosecutor. Jacob pulled out his phone. The prosecutor's office denied issuing it. His blood turned to ice. Someone had forged the execution order. Someone knew they had uncovered the truth. And they were trying to kill Marin before she could ever speak. Jacob spun around. Stop that transport. The warden reached for the radio. Which transport? Jacob's face went white. How many did you send? 1. When? 20 minutes ago. Jacob looked through the prison window at the empty highway. Then his phone rang. He answered. A distorted voice whispered. Detective Mercer. Jacob froze. Who is this? You should have left the dead alone. A second voice came through the line. Marin's. Weak. Terrified. Jacob. His entire body went rigid. Marin. Where are you? The line crackled. Then she whispered. They're taking me back to Mercy. The call ended. Jacob's eyes hardened. He grabbed his weapon and ran for the door. Because now he understood the truth. Marin hadn't been running from the police for 3 years. She had been running from the people who were hunting everyone who knew what happened inside Mercy Hospital. And Lola hadn't died trying to destroy Marin. She had died trying to protect her. Jacob had spent 3 years believing he was chasing a murderer. In reality, he had been protecting the murderers. Jacob reached Mercy Hospital in 12 minutes. The place was supposed to be closed for renovations, but the basement lights were blazing. He kicked through the side entrance with his team behind him. Police! Drop your weapons! Gunfire erupted from the corridor. Jacob ducked behind a concrete pillar. Move! His officer stormed forward while he raced toward the elevators. The basement. That was where they were taking Marin. The elevator doors opened. Jacob stepped out and froze. Marin was strapped to an operating table. A surgical light hung above her. Dr. Adrian Vale stood beside her with a scalpel in his hand. Marin's eyes widened when she saw Jacob. You're late. Vale smiled. Detective Mercer. You really are persistent. Jacob raised his gun. Step away from her. Vale laughed. You still don't understand. He held up a folder. Your former fiancée discovered our operation 3 years ago. She tried to expose us. Jacob's jaw tightened. Lola. She found everything. The donors. The payments. The missing patients. Vale shrugged. So we made sure nobody would believe her. Jacob looked at Marin. And her? Marin found out after her mother died. She stole the records and ran. Marin laughed bitterly. I didn't run. Vale's smile faded. I was hunting you. Marin looked at Jacob. I spent 3 years collecting evidence. She nodded toward the walls. Every victim. Every transaction. Every name. Jacob looked around. Hidden cameras were recording everything. Vale realized it too late. You. Marin smiled. The entire confession is being streamed. Police sirens screamed outside. The deputy chief's voice blasted through the speakers. Adrian Vale, you're under arrest. Vale lunged toward Marin. Jacob fired into the ceiling. Don't. Vale froze. Officers swarmed the room. Within seconds, he was dragged away screaming. Jacob rushed to Marin and cut her restraints. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Jacob dropped to his knees. I'm sorry. Marin stared at him. You should be. His eyes filled with tears. I believed them. You did. I sentenced you. You did. I almost let them kill you. Marin pulled the blanket around herself. And now you want forgiveness? Jacob shook his head. No. He swallowed. I want to spend the rest of my life making sure nobody ever gets to hurt you again. Marin stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked away. Start by clearing my name. I will. And Lola? Jacob's expression broke. We found her final statement. Marin's eyes trembled. What did she say? Jacob handed her the document. Marin unfolded it. There was only one sentence. Please save Marin. She was never my enemy. Marin covered her mouth. For 3 years, she had carried the weight of believing Lola had betrayed her. Now she finally knew the truth. Lola had died protecting her. 3 days later, the court overturned Marin's conviction. Every charge was dismissed. The 5 murder cases were reopened. Mercy Hospital was shut down. More than 400 illegal organ transactions were uncovered. Dozens of doctors, executives, brokers, and government officials were arrested. And Adrian Vale received 5 consecutive life sentences. Jacob testified against him. Then he testified again. And again. He exposed everything. When reporters asked why he had risked his career to save Marin, he gave them only one answer. Because I was wrong. Months later, Marin stood at Lola's grave. She placed the silver protection charm beside the flowers. I'm sorry it took me so long. Jacob stood several feet behind her. He didn't approach. He knew better. Marin wiped her tears and turned around. You can come over. Jacob walked toward her. She looked at him. You know we're never going to be what we were. I know. But. She held out her hand. Jacob stared at it. Then carefully took it. Marin smiled through her tears. Maybe we can start with the truth. Jacob squeezed her hand. For once, that's enough. Behind them, the wind moved through the cemetery trees. And beneath the flowers beside Lola's grave. The silver charm caught the sunlight. The same charm that had once been used to make Marin look guilty now stood as the final proof that Lola had never stopped protecting her. A year later, Marin returned to Mercy Hospital. The building had been abandoned, its name stripped from the entrance. She stood outside for a long moment before walking in. Jacob waited beside her. You don't have to do this. I know. Marin smiled. I'm doing it because I want to. They walked through the empty halls together. The operating room where Lola had died had been sealed. Marin placed a bouquet of white flowers outside the door. Then she whispered. You can rest now, Lola. Jacob stood beside her, silent. Marin reached for his hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Her life had been stolen from her once. Her reputation had been destroyed. She had been sentenced to die for crimes she never committed. But the truth had survived. And so had she. The woman who had once been hunted across 8 states was finally free. And the detective who had once put handcuffs on her was now the man walking beside her. Neither of them could change the past. But they could choose what came next. As they walked away from the hospital, Marin glanced back one last time. The sun was setting behind the building. For the first time in years, she felt no fear when she looked at it. Lola's story was over. So was the nightmare. And Marin's life was finally hers again.